Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. We're back with another game preview of the first round of the NCAA tournament. We've got number 3 seed Virginia taking on 14 seed Wright State. On the surface, this matchup looks like a pretty poor one for Wright State. We're going to dive in here to what they could potentially do to hang around in this game, to potentially pull off the upset. We've seen Virginia get upset in this tournament before, obviously under different circumstances, different team. But in this matchup, like Wright State's a team, I'll let you dive into it, but a team that really likes to get to the rim. And unfortunately for them in this matchup, Virginia is a team that just doesn't really allow that. A really strong 2-point field goal percentage defense, just a strong defense in general. So what does Wright State need to do, if anything, to be able to hang around in this game?
Yeah, I think the thing that they have going for them on the offensive end is they like to play in pick and roll a ton, and Virginia's going to force that and play their drop coverage, and that's going to give Wright State a chance to get downhill or operate in the mid-range area, which, they seem to be okay with, with like TJ Birch, the head of the snake there, can kind of make plays in pick and roll. This is a team that has quite a bit of depth as well. In and out. So that could be something that helps them out as well. But yeah, you mentioned it. Just, this is a team that wants to get to the rim at will. 43% of their shots come at the rim. That's per CBB analytics. And that's number 1 in the country on this site. And that's, very bad news when you're, stacking up against Onyenso and Grunlow, who, you saw what Onyenso did to Cam Boozer in the ACC championship. What did he have? 8 blocks? And he was like
in back-to-back games, he had a total of 17 blocks.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like you hold Cam Boozer to 3 for 17 shooting. Like, what is he going to do to this Wright State group that doesn't have that, obviously that level of physicality? And, that's kind of where they want to make shots, and they're not really going to be able to. But yeah, I think, it's a team that likes to operate out of primary actions. Virginia will give that up. They're not like a catch and shoot reliant offense, which I think is a good thing because, Virginia is, trying to cut off catch and shoot. So I think that's kind of the path to their offense is like, it's not going to be an efficient way of scoring, but if they can get hot in those intermediate areas, I think they do have a chance there. Wright State, they will limit the 3. They will limit the catch and shoot 3 themselves. And Virginia, they really like getting into their spot up game. They're a very heavy attack and kick offense, and Wright State does a pretty good job of taking that away. So if you can, force Virginia into longer possessions, if they're not able to get the shots that they want, I do think that gives them a chance. But ultimately, I just don't think there's enough paths for them on the offensive end to get the job done here.
Yeah, and it's tough too when like Virginia is a very dominant offensive rebounding team as well, and like Wright State just doesn't really have the size to really match it. The biggest guy that they play is 6'9", in Kellen Pickett, and outside of that, they're like all 6'6" or 7 and under. That's going to be tough to battle against the top 10 offensive rebounding unit. They're 119th in the country in defensive rebound rate, out of the Horizon League. You're playing a top unit in the country, that is probably going to be able to dominate against you when they get those offensive rebounds. The Wright State defense is on the interiors, 233rd in 2-point defense, allowing 58% at the rim. They allow a high percentage of shot attempts at the rim. So I just think it's probably not a great setup for Wright State in this matchup, unfortunately, which is why we would be, I think, pretty surprised if there were an upset here. But we're gonna take Virginia to move on here to the round of 32. Thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.